And welcome back, rugby fans, to Rugby411. As always, I'm your host. My name is Joshua Shibata. And this is it, fans. We have made it to the end of the 2024 MLR regular season. It is wrapped up, the 7th season of MLR in the books. It was an exciting season. Even though this weekend we really didn't have a lot to play for, it was still a very exciting weekend of MLR action. A couple of upsets, which means we do have a new #1 team to finish off our power rankings in this season. But we have a lot to go over in this video. Not only do we have to unveil our power rankings, we're going to do our comparison of the power rankings, how they finish, to my way too early predictions made before the season even began. We also have to announce the winner of the MLR Rugby411 SuperBru Pick'em Pool. Which some people won't be really surprised by this, but still, kudos to our winner, and we're going to announce that in just a second. Again, if you don't know how the power rankings go, I mean, God, I've been repeating this through this whole season so far, is what goes on the pitch, who you play against, how well you beat them. If you're a top team beating a low-ranking team, you don't really move very much. If you're a lower-ranking team that beats a top-ranking team, you're going to skyrocket up of the rankings. And again, these rankings are not affected by the standings at the very end, or teams that make the playoffs. You might find that teams that miss the playoff might be ranked a little bit higher than those that made it. It really is about who's been winning, and really that momentum that's driving them into the playoff picture. So, without further ado, let's get started. Number 12, sadly, we've seen this before, but it is a team that has been pretty much number 12 from the very beginning. The Anthem Rugby, Carolina Anthem Rugby, who have finished the season without a win, just the second time, I believe, in the history of MLR, right behind the Dallas Jackals, who, again, guys, it's really impressive how Major League Rugby works. The Dallas Jackals, 3 years ago, started in MLR. They did not win a game. Second season, they only won, I believe, 2 games, and now they are in the playoffs. So it is possible to see a team like Anthem Rugby, which I really, truly believe, with the way they've been playing, the way that the whole purpose of this team is to develop young players. A bunch of them are in the under-20 team right now. A bunch of them will have future opportunities to really excel their game, to excel their careers on an international level. Anthem Rugby is going to be a force to be reckoned with next year. I guarantee you that they will not go winless next season, especially if they keep the core players that they have, because they have a lot of great talent on the team. I think it is a great thing that MLR and World Rugby are doing, and USA Rugby, to really support this team and really help develop the young talent here in America. So nothing to be ashamed of for Anthem Rugby Carolina with the way that they finished the season, but they do finish the season on the bottom. What I don't think really helped them was just the way that the schedule played out by Major League Rugby, finishing the season against the reigning defending MLR champions, the New England Free Jacks. Not a really great way to do it, but they only lost 40-7. I only say that because, again, you're facing against a team that's been very good this season. And just to lose only with 40 points by 33 points is not that shabby. So, game was pretty much all New England. New England held Carolina to no points until the very end, where they finally scored their only try. I'll go a little bit more into detail when we talk about New England, but again, nothing to be ashamed of with Carolina. Like I said, you see a team like Dallas that also started their Major League Rugby franchise 0-16 3 years ago. Now they're in the playoffs. So the turnaround for Carolina, I feel, will be very similar to that. Number 11, another team that has nothing to be ashamed of, another new kid on the block, the Miami Sharks, who fall a couple of spots after losing to the Chicago Hounds, who themselves were relatively new. Losing in kind of a close game, 26-38. Again, Miami, for their very first year, they almost made the playoffs. They were closer to the playoffs than any of the teams that debuted this season, including Anthem, including Rugby Football Club LA. Miami is really just a couple points shy and a couple wins shy of making it to the playoffs. They are definitely going to be a tough team to reckon with, and they're only going to get better, especially if the franchise continues to develop the team as it is. I feel Miami has a good shot of making the playoffs next season. In this game, Miami fell behind to Chicago pretty early on in the game, but by the second half, Miami comes back scoring 19 straight points to come within to take a 2-point lead in the game. It becomes a pretty defensive game in the second half. But unfortunately, in the second half, Chicago, and again, I'll go more in details when I talk about Chicago. Chicago kind of breaks away from the game, and they win the game 38-26. That earns Chicago the third-place seed in the Eastern Conference, and again, kind of puts a cap to Miami's season. Nothing to be ashamed of for Miami. A very good job. As I mentioned before, we have the Dallas Jackals, who do make the playoffs, but unfortunately, they did slide. They actually went up a spot because they had a really good game, losing to the Houston SaberCats, the best team in the league, by 1 point, 28-29. Dallas Jackals actually move up a spot from the 11-10. And a rare occasion where I have a losing team go up a spot, just because it really almost seemed like a win for them, because they took Houston to the limit, lost by a last-second penalty kick. But they could have had the huge upset in defeating the best team in the league this year, the Houston SaberCats. Going over the game, Houston starts off really hot. They get their 4 tries in their bonus point in the very first 35 minutes, and then it's all Dallas. Dallas scores try after try after try. They score 4 straight tries to get the lead of the game by 2 points. It isn't until the very last second that Houston is able, on the boot of AJ Alatimu, score the winning penalty kick. I'm sorry, off the boot of Sam Windsor. The highest scoring point scorer of all time in Major League Rugby, scores the winning kick, and Houston ends up winning the game 29-28. Very close loss to the Dallas Jackals. They are still in the playoffs, nothing to be ashamed of. They are the number 4 spot. They will be playing Houston. This is the odd occasion where all the Western Conference games are basically going to be repeated for the Western Conference playoff. Dallas and Houston will play against each other again in Houston. I'll be honest with you guys, I really felt that Dallas would kind of get blown away by Houston, but if Dallas plays this way against Houston, we are in for an exciting number 4 seed versus number 1 seed in the playoff, where we might see, a huge upset here. Again, Dallas was very close to winning this game. If it wasn't for a last-second penalty kick, Dallas could have ended up winning with the upset. And hey, granted, this wasn't the playoffs. Who knows how serious people would be playing? Dallas could be winning, we'll see. But it's a very, very impressive performance by the Dallas Jackals, who again will be facing Houston in a couple of weeks. Sliding down a couple of spots to number 7, the number 9 team, the Utah Warriors, who after a very impressive win last week, ends up against the Dallas Jackals, ends up losing this one to the other new kids on the block, Rugby Football Club LA. Both teams had nothing to play for, but it was still a very, very exciting game. LA moves up 2 spots to number 10. Utah slides down 2 spots from number 9 to number 7. In this game, it was a lot of back and forth action. The thing about this game with LA will have these instances where they are just pure dominant defense. LA had a yellow card, no surprise there. But Utah was not able to take advantage of that yellow card because LA's defense was so dominant. But then, yellow card is off. LA all of a sudden falls asleep, and Michael Manson from Utah is able to score a very easy walk-in try. Now, granted, it is Michael Manson, who ended up getting 2 tries in this game, and it finished the season with, finished the season with 12 tries. 14 tries to finish as the top try scorer of the season. Granted, again, it's Michael Manson, but still, the tries that Utah ended up scoring on LA just look so easy. It's just kind of frustrating where LA will look so good one minute and then just look so poor the next minute. In the end, LA though ends up taking away the lead, 31-24. It was only because of a last-second try by Belmont Shore veteran Derek Adams, who scored in the last couple of minutes, allowing LA to walk away with the win. Again, LA has nothing to be ashamed of. A tough first season, but they still did far better than what I was expecting. If we do my comparison of what I predicted they were going to win, Utah did struggle here and there. They had a lot of injuries, and unfortunately that caused them to miss out on the playoffs. Both teams did very well for this season, but unfortunately both teams do miss the playoffs. LA, again, as an LA fan, a pretty good first season. A lot of memories for me as well. Unfortunately, though, the announcement was just made a couple of days ago that the head coach of LA, SuperBru, unfortunately is stepping down and no longer going to be the head coach for LA. Again, he came in as the coach after coaching Rugby ATL. That franchise was closed, moved over to LA. Again, it's not the same team as the ATL team that existed. It was pretty much just a brand new franchise with a couple players from ATL and the head coach. But SuperBru is no longer going to be the head coach for LA in the next year. So LA is looking for a new head coach as we go into year number 2. Moving on. The number 7 spot in a very, very exciting game. Again, another hot preview of what's to come in the Western Conference. The Seattle Seawolves slide down from number 4 all the way to number 7, losing the San Diego Legion, their eternal rival, 33-45. This was a exciting game. Seattle started off super hot. They looked very, very dominant in this game, leading at the half 21-17. But then in the second half, it was all San Diego. San Diego ended up scoring 38 points in the second half, only allowing Seattle to score 5. So again, Seattle was up 21-17 at the half. Second half, San Diego, they're called the comeback kids. Like I said, the majority of their games, San Diego was not in the lead in the second half, and they ended up winning those games. They did it again this time. Again, scoring 38 points to just 5 for Seattle, and San Diego ended up walking away with the win, 45-33. Again, this game will be repeated 2 weeks from now in the playoffs. San Diego and Seattle are the number 2 and 3 seeds in the Western Conference, but this time is a little different. This game was played in San Diego. Next game in the playoffs will be played in Seattle at Starfire Stadium in front of a very, very vocal Seattle crowd. I don't know how much that will affect the game, but this is a very, very rich rivalry, especially in the playoffs, which I'll go more into detail when I go to that video in a couple weeks. But again, that was a very, very exciting game, and the rivalry continues between those two teams. Next, staying number 6 is your reigning defending MLR champions, the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference, New England Free Jacks. As I mentioned before, they pretty much manhandled Carolina 40-7. Beating on the number 12 team that's never won a game, not expecting much, and I'm not going to expect you to move very high unless you're real, like 100 points or something like that. You're pretty much going to stay at the number 6. You did what you're supposed to do. If you did any less, there might be a question about moving you down. But a team that also didn't move very far, your Houston SaberCats, the number 1 team in the Western Conference, and has the best record in the league. Even though they have the best record in the league, they did lose a couple of games that slid them down to the number 5. They don't move because this game against the Dallas Jackals, where, like I said, Dallas barely lost. Houston looked a little shaky in that game, so I didn't feel they were justified of moving up. Definitely not down because they won, so I kept them at the number 5 spot. Again, this game will be repeated when Houston and Dallas play against each other in the playoffs, so it'll be very, very interesting to see how that game turns out for them. But yeah, not much else to say. If Houston's really going to have to kind of pick up their game, otherwise there might be an upset of a number 4 seed upsetting a number 1 seed in the playoffs. Number 4, this was an upset. Your number 1 team going into the power rankings, the NOLA Gold, slides down to number 4 after losing to Old Glory DC, 24-27. That is a big upset. That also earned the Old Glory DC the number 3 spot, going up from number 8 to number 3. NOLA slides down from number 1 to number 4. in this game, again, this also was a game that was very exciting, going back and forth. By the half, 17-10 was Old Glory. Nola scores in the second half, but Old Glory takes the lead 24-17. In the end, Nola tries to make the comeback, but Old Glory keeps the defense going, and they're able to etch out the win, 27-24. Again, a very, very exciting game for Old Glory. And, this is another team that I wouldn't be surprised. Again, we're having some exciting playoff games because Old Glory is going to match up with New England. And New England and Old Glory, when they played, Old Glory barely lost to New England last time they played by 1 point. Old Glory, when they really need to, they can play very, very tough. They just proved it against NOLA, who's been on a hot streak. They've come very close to beating New England, losing by 1 point. Old Glory takes on Free Jacks in the playoffs. I wouldn't be surprised if there's an upset on that one as well. So Old Glory is a team that definitely has some momentum going into the playoffs. Number 2, moving up a spot because of Old Glory knocking down NOLA, your Chicago Hounds, going into the playoffs pretty hot. I mean, it's interesting. Losing their head coach, they are on a 4-game winning streak. I mean, they've actually improved a lot. So I don't want to point fingers at what the possibility of that change is, but Chicago is looking very much like the team that I kind of predicted Chicago would be, and they are going into the playoffs with a lot of momentum on hand. I talked about the game a little bit with the Miami one. On the Chicago side, you got to make a mention about, at the very beginning, Luke Carty, who is going to be playing in the USA versus Romania team. He will be a capped Eagle. He had a beautiful interception pass within the first 30 seconds to score a try. Another great moment for Chicago was the fact that Dylan the Butcher Fawcett scored 2 tries to add to his overall total. 12 tries this season, 53 overall. He is still the highest try scoring person in the history of Major League Rugby with 53 tries. A very impressive display by Dylan the Butcher Fawcett, who also too is going to be playing in that Eagles game against Romania as a capped Eagle. Finally, your new number 1 team going into the final power rankings, San Diego Legion, sliding up a spot with the fall of NOLA. And to be honest, a very deserving move up because they put on a very impressive performance against the Seattle Seawolves, 45-33. Talked about that game just a little bit. I do got to make a shout out to another guy who scored a career record try, is Mikey Teo. He scored his 32nd try in Major League Rugby career. That is the 3rd highest in overall history. So congratulations to you, Mikey Teo. Unfortunately, he is not a capped Eagle for this game, but he is a former previous capped Eagle. So that is our final power rankings for the season. As I mentioned before, I mean, you look at it, it kind of coincides with the playoffs. The only things that are a little bit different, Dallas, and as I mentioned before, kind of sliding below the 2 teams that are not in the Western Conference playoffs. But everybody else is up there. The interesting part is the fact that New England, who is the number 1 seed, is behind the number 2 and number 3. Actually, behind the number 3, the number 2, number 3, and the number 4 teams. But other than that, I mean, it's a pretty accurate statement of what teams have the most momentum going into the playoffs. You have some teams that are faltering a little bit, but still, I'm pretty happy with how these power rankings ended for the end of the season. Now, here's the fun and somewhat embarrassing part for me, comparing this with my way too early predictions at the very beginning of the season, which will pop up right there. So as you see, to my shock as well, and I kid you guys not, I did not look at these, I don't remember them, and I was really surprised that I nailed the top 2. San Diego I predicted to finish as the number 1 team. Now granted, their record nowhere near the 15-1 that I thought they would have, but not too far off, 11-5. And Chicago, like I said, I thought they would be a great team. They struggled quite a bit in the season, had to lose their head coach, but now they are looking like the team that I predicted them to be, and they have a very good shot of, as I predicted, I felt San Diego and Chicago would be the 2 teams playing in San Diego for the MLR Shield, and they are the top 2 teams here in the power rankings. New England was number 3, so I'm a little bit off on that. Seattle, that loss to San Diego kind of drops them down a bit. The Houston one I got to at number 5, but the record for Houston I completely missed off. I didn't expect Houston to be as dominant as they were. I did expect them to make the playoffs, but with my power rankings, they matched up record-wise, nowhere near it. Old Glory slides up to number 3. I was almost close to their record. I did notice that on the early power rankings, my math was completely off. Old Glory and Utah should be 8-8. Otherwise, the math doesn't make sense. For the Old Glory one, I didn't really account for ties, so Old Glory finished 7-7-2. I wasn't too far off on that one. Utah, I wasn't completely off on that one as well. Dallas at number 8, so I was a little slight off. The one that I was really off on, and it's very similar to how I was last year with New England, who ended up winning the MLR Shield, was NOLA. I didn't predict NOLA to be very good. I was shocked at how amazing they were. In the end, they slid down from the number 1 spot to the number 4 spot, but I predicted them to be 10 and not even in the playoffs, and they are a pretty hot team going into the playoffs. So, maybe history will repeat itself. Maybe the team again that I kind of slept on ends up winning the Shield. So that's good for NOLA. It happened in New England. Could happen in NOLA this year. And then Miami, I was predicting to do a little bit worse than what they did. 6-10, 3-13. And then I actually was expecting my team, RFCLA, to do much worse, and they ended up moving up a couple spots. And of course, Charlotte, I got right off the bat, 0-16, 0-16, number 12. So again, I'm kind of surprised that my rankings were actually pretty good prediction-wise. So yeah, actually wasn't too bad at all. So I'm pretty happy with that. Now, another person who we'll be pretty happy about is our winner of our SuperBru. Before we get to that, let's at least go over the week winner. And congratulations to Mr. Rugby. You were the week. You got the golden cap for the final week of the regular season at a possible 17 points, 7.5, tied with Leon. Again, I don't know how you get the golden cap and Leon does not, but Leon, you are unfortunately number 2. But hey, great job, Leon. Leon, you were kind of on the bottom with me, and you finished the season really, really strong. So great job for you. Another person that finished very strong, myself, number 3. Pretty shocked at that. This season was not very good for me, so I'm glad that at least I finished the last part of the season pretty well. Lady Julita as well, 6.5. Tex and Frisco Flame tied for number 5 with 6 points. Now, the unveiling. After 18 weeks of action, who ended up winning our pool and a free t-shirt of the MLR team of their choice? Drum roll. Bam! And congratulations, JZS, or Celta88, as you're known on the YouTube. Congratulations, brother. You are our SuperBru winner. Great job with 103.66 points. Pretty dominating performance. Second place was Harry. So close, 93.41. But Harry, you actually decreased the lead because I believe JZS was ahead of you by like 11 last week. You at least made a 1-point margin up. So Harry, number 2. Sarai, who was our number 1 for a long time, ended up number 3 in the end, 92.08. So very good job for you. Tied with B2 Woodrow, who also finished 92.08. Also moved up a spot. Dropping down 2 spots to number 5, the reviewer 812. And then a special shout out to my buddy Frisco Flame, who, just like me, was not doing very well this season. Ended up finishing number 6. Very impressive, brother. Congratulations on that. But in the end, JZS, you are our number 1 winner. And this might make everyone else feel a little bit better. I didn't know this. Well, actually, I did know this. And I didn't want to say anything to jinx it because I think I jinxed Sarai with this because I mentioned it on the YouTube channel. And unfortunately, right after that, he kind of went down. But JZS finished the season not only number 1 in our pool, not only number 1 in a bunch of other pools, but he is the number 1 player in the world. Not just in our country, in the world. So, congratulations to you, JZS. I didn't want to say anything because, like I said, I jinxed Sarai with that, and it didn't happen to you. So, congratulations, brother. Great job, man. So, for everybody else, I personally don't feel so bad losing. If I'm going to lose to somebody, might as well be the best in the world, and that was JZS. So again, JZS Celta 88, however you want to be called. I will leave my email information in the comments below. Hit me up. Let me know what t-shirt you want. Let me know the address to send it to. I'm assuming, because you are, by your profile, a New England Free Jacks fan, you might want a New England Free Jacks shirt. If you don't want that, because you might already have a bunch of them, let me know. Also, let me know what size, and then I will send that to you. And, yeah, congratulations again, brother. So, alright, so with that being said, just to let you guys know, a little bit of housekeeping. 2 weeks we're going to be a little bit on the down low because playoff season does not start until 2 weeks from now because we're taking a little time out to do some international competition, which I will be doing the next video talking about. As USA, the National Eagles team will be taking on Romania this Friday, and SeatGeek Stadium, and then the following week we'll be taking on Scotland in Washington, D.C. So because of those 2 weeks, it only seemed fair. There's a lot of, the whole squad is made up of pretty much MLR players. It only seemed fair to allow those teams to not have to be penalized by having the players go off and play. We take a 2-week break. After those 2 games are done, we go back to the playoffs, which I think is smart. Again, as an American fan, you really don't see these things happen in sports. But if you watch international competitions like Premiership Rugby, the URC, they do have to play during the playoffs while international games are happening. So a lot of their top players end up leaving to go play these international games, and it kind of throws things into a little loop for all these games that they're playing. So it just seems fair for everybody if we just take the time out, allow those players to play, and then come back so all the teams are at full strength. No excuses. So we'll be taking those 2 weeks off before we talk about the playoffs, but those playoffs will be exciting. Again, we'll have games on the weekend of the 20th and 21st. That's going to be our first round games, and then the weekend of the 27th and 28th, we'll have our conference championships, and then August 4th on Fox, we will have the MLR championship game. And again, we'll preview all those games. We'll talk about it when those times comes. But yeah, that's it. This was the last of our power rankings for the 2024 season. Again, it was a very fun season. I loved it just because, again, I have a team now that I can root for, a team that I work for. So it definitely was an exciting season for me. And thank you very much for all you guys out there that supported the videos, supported the channel. A lot of your comments have been great. Keeps me going, keeps me motivated. And a special shout out to all the fans that come out to the RFCLA games, especially the ones that talk to me when I'm doing PA work. You guys are amazing. I hope to see you all again Season 2. Hope Season 2 is better, bigger. We win more. We make the playoffs because we have the potential to do it. So yeah, it's been great. So again, as always, thank you very much for watching my video. Thank you very much for supporting. Don't go too far because we will be back with some more playoff MLR action in just a couple weeks. But otherwise, I'll see you on the pitch.